Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Uzma Jafri. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 29th of January. Budget session of Indian Parliament begins amid COVID-19 farmers' protest. Pentagon warns Afghan Taliban on failure to meet commitments on violence, terrorism. And Sri Lanka kicks off inoculation of frontline health workers. And now for all the details. Indian Parliament's budget session kicked off on Friday with President Ramnath Kovind's address. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the economic survey that details the state of the economy ahead of the government's budget for fiscal year beginning April 1. The Economic Survey 2021 pegs India's GDP growth at 11% in financial year 2022. This year's budget session comes in the shadow of the coronavirus pandemic and amid massive protests against the three contentious farm laws.
The budget session commenced on Friday with India's President Ramnath Kovind's address to the joint sitting of Parliament amid several opposition parties boycotting the event in support of the ongoing farmers' protest. President Kovind lauded the central government for its timely decision during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic that saved the lives of millions of citizens. Later, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman tabled the Economic Survey 2021 in the Parliament, detailing the state of economy ahead of the government's budget for fiscal year beginning 1st of April. Chief Economic Advisor Krishnamurthy Subramanian, who wrote the economic report, told a news conference that reforms can speed up the economic recovery.
So to summarize, the policy response that India came up with was a mature, far-sighted one. India focused on saving lives and livelihoods, took short-term pain for long-term gain, recognized that while GDP growth will recover, and it has, lost human lives cannot be brought back. This was the humane principle that guided India's policy response.
The government has forecast a robust economic recovery of 11% for fiscal 2021-22 in the economic survey on the back of the rollout of a massive vaccination drive. While the survey forecast a V-shaped economic recovery, it also cautioned that it would take at least 2 years to regain pre-pandemic levels.
Fresh scuffles broke out on Friday between farmers and a group of people who wanted the protest site at Indian capital Singhu border with Haryana to be cleared. Police resorted to baton charge and tear gas shelling to control the situation. Thousands of farmers have been camping at New Delhi's borders for over 2 months, demonstrating against the new agricultural laws.
Fresh scuffles broke out between farmers and a group of people who raised slogans demanding the protest site at Indian capital Singhu border with Haryana state to be cleared on Friday. The group raised anti-farmer slogans expressing anger over Tuesday's violent clashes with police during a pharmacist tractor rally. They tried to remove tents from the Singhu border protest site where thousands of farmers have been protesting against 3 new farm laws for over 2 months now. The two sides soon afterwards started pelting stones at each other. The police then intervened and resorted to baton charge and tear gas shelling to disperse the crowd. Earlier on Friday, thousands of farmers marched overnight to reinforce protesting colleagues camping at Delhi's Ghazipur border with Uttar Pradesh state as authorities tried to clear the protest site. But most farmers refused to move and their leaders said any retreat would constitute surrender.
नहीं हम कोई खाली नहीं करेंगे नहीं हम बात करेंगे पहले भारत सरकार से जो हमारे इशू है उस पर बातचीत करेंगे मीडिया बंधुओं से निवेदन है बात करेंगे अभी इसके बाद
Farmer leaders say the laws enacted in September will leave them at mercy of big corporations and are an attempt to erode a long-standing mechanism that ensures farmers a minimum support price for their produce. The government says the reforms will open up new opportunities for farmers and has refused to bow to the demands of repeal.
In news from Pakistan, slamming the Pakistani court's decision to acquit American journalist Daniel Paul Skiller, Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, said that Washington is ready to prosecute Sheikh in the US for his horrific crimes against an American citizen. The White House has also expressed outrage over the order by Pakistan's Supreme Court.
Pakistan's Supreme Court on Thursday ordered the release of Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh, convicted of beheading US journalist Daniel Pearl, a decision that shocked his family and drew condemnation from Washington. Sheikh, the main suspect in the 2002 kidnapping and murder of Wall Street Journal reporter Pearl, was acquitted by a panel of 3 judges on Thursday. Pearl was investigating Islamist militants in Karachi after the September 11, 2001 attacks on the US when he was kidnapped. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki called the decision an affront to terror victims everywhere and said Washington is committed to securing justice for Daniel Pearl's family.
The United States is outraged by the Pakistani Supreme Court's decision to affirm the acquittals of those responsible for Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl's kidnapping and brutal murder, which shocked the world's conscience in 2002. This decision to exonerate and release Sheikh and the other suspects is an affront to terrorism victims everywhere, including in Pakistan.
In a separate statement, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the US is prepared to prosecute Sheikh in the United States. Meanwhile, the provincial government of Sindh has announced that it will file a review petition against Supreme Court's decision to acquit Sheikh. However, it is not clear how long it will take for the petition to be filed.
Moving on. Massive protests were held across Gilgit-Baltistan this week against the denial of jobs to the local population in the Diamar Bhasha hydropower project. Activists have long raised concerns over rampant destruction of natural resources by Pakistan through so-called development projects in the illegally occupied region without any consideration of rights of the indigenous people.
Activists and residents staged massive protests across Gilgit-Baltistan this week against denial of jobs to the local population in the Diamar Bhasha hydropower project in the illegally occupied region. The protesters chanted slogans against the Water and Power Development Authority or WAPDA office and said Diamar residents had sacrificed their homes and land for the dam. And they raised demands for appointment of dam-affected people on technical, non-technical and administrative posts in the dam project. They also rejected a recent advertisement issued by WAPDA for appointments on over 100 posts, saying they should be given priority first. The Diamar Bhasha Dam is the second mega multi-purpose dam that has been commenced in about a year and is scheduled to be completed in 2028 to 29. The project has not only ravaged the natural resources of the illegally occupied region, but also left a large number of people homeless and poverty-stricken. Activists have long raised concerns over rampant destruction of natural resources by Pakistan through the so-called development projects, without any consideration of rights of indigenous people and the environment in its illegally occupied regions.
The Pentagon has informed that the US administration believes it is hard to see a way forward for a negotiated settlement with the Afghan Taliban unless the militant group meets its commitments under a 2020 deal. This comes as despite stepped-up diplomacy to end the war, including Afghan peace talks taking place in Doha, killings of civilians in Afghanistan have increased.
The US administration believes it is hard to see a way forward for a negotiated settlement with the Taliban unless the militant group meets its commitments under a 2020 deal. Although Washington remains committed to the effort, the Pentagon said on Thursday. Killings of civilians in Afghanistan's conflict rose to more than 2,900 last year, the country's Human Rights Commission has said, despite stepped-up diplomacy to end the war, including peace talks taking place in Doha. The deaths are part of a wider increase in violence that threatens a delicate peace process, undermining international calls for a ceasefire as the Afghan government takes part in peace negotiations with the Taliban.
I said the Taliban are not meeting their commitments to reduce violence and to renounce their ties to al-Qaeda. They are not meeting their commitments. And as long as they're not meeting their commitments, it's going to be difficult for anybody at that negotiating table to meet their commitments. In fact, it wouldn't be the wise course. I mean, we obviously are still committed to ending this war.
The February 2020 agreement with the Taliban calls for a complete US troop withdrawal by May 2021 in return for the insurgents fulfilling security guarantees. This came as US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a phone conversation with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, discussed the Afghan peace process and the US commitment to an enduring US-Afghan partnership, the US State Department said in a statement on Thursday. Blinken shared that the United States is reviewing the February 2020 US-Taliban agreement and whether the Taliban are living up to their commitments to cut ties with terrorist groups, to reduce violence in Afghanistan, and to engage in meaningful negotiations with the Afghan government and other stakeholders.
In news from Nepal, the Supreme Court of Nepal has ordered caretaker Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to appear before it within a week with a written response to the cases of contempt of court filed against him. Two separate cases of contempt of court were filed against Oli earlier this week for describing the apex court's hearing as a drama and calling a 95-year-old senior advocate a grandpa lawyer.
The Nepal Supreme Court on Thursday ordered caretaker Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to appear before it within the next 7 days with a written response to the cases of contempt of court filed against him. Two separate cases of contempt of court were filed against Oli earlier this week for describing the apex court's hearing as a drama and calling a 95-year-old senior advocate Krishna Prasad Bhandari a grandpa lawyer. Bhandari, participating at the Supreme Court hearing against Oli, earlier had termed his dissolving the House of Representatives as coup against the constitution. Oli had dissolved the Nepali parliament on December 20 amid a political tussle with his own ruling Nepal Communist Party or NCP leader Pushpa Kamal Dahal. He has even been expelled from the general membership of the NCP now.
Moving on to news from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka kicked off coronavirus inoculations for frontline health workers on Friday, a day after 500,000 doses of the vaccine were donated by neighbouring India. The rollout of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured by the Serum Institute of India began for health workers in 6 hospitals in and around the capital, Colombo. It will gradually expand to cover the entire island. Armed forces personnel and police involved in operations to control the spread of the coronavirus were also included in the first phase of the vaccination. The Sri Lanka government had announced that it plans to buy 3 million doses of the vaccine from the Serum Institute. China said it would deliver 300,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine in the next 3 weeks. The island nation of 22 million people has reported over 60,690 infections with 290 deaths in total. In a bid to revive the dying art of calligraphy in India's Jammu and Kashmir, authorities in Srinagar city organized a workshop-cum-art exhibition earlier this week. The event was an outreach program which aimed to encourage the youth in the valley towards the art form.
In a bid to encourage youth and revive the dying art of calligraphy in India's Jammu and Kashmir, an art exhibition cum workshop was organized earlier this week in Srinagar city. Both young girl and boy artists got a platform to showcase their work during the event and learn more about the age-old practice in the valley. Locals who participated in the event thanked the authorities for organizing the event and hoped more such workshops are organized in the future to promote new talent.
पहले तो ये बहुत अच्छी बात है कि इन लोगों ने इतना इनिशिएटिव लिया कि बच्चे यहाँ पे आए और उन्होंने देखा कि बहुत कोविड के दौरान बहुत लोग इसकी ओर बहुत अट्रैक्टेड थे कैलीग्राफी, कोई पेन से, कोई 3D, कोई कुछ भी कर रहा था. तो इन लोगों ने एक अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म दिया कि सब आए अपने आर्ट एज अ एग्जिबिशन एज वेल एज वर्कशॉप की तरह यहाँ पे.
Kashmir Valley, often called the heaven on earth, has more to offer than its breathtaking scenic beauty. One such example is its rich heritage in art and culture, which also includes the tradition of calligraphy.
Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend.